Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started with our work session today. Have
Julie, there's
a
snacks.
few items on the informal agenda, and then we'll talk about the assurance argument, but I'll just turn things over to Dr. Kroll to go.
Yeah, I think first thing, let's do tuition and fees, and then we'll do room and board. We always present these in February at the work session, and then they have to be on the March agenda for approval. So here's the tuition and fees information. This is the same as what I emailed you yesterday.
But it only printed out this first box.
I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. I got way too many.
Oh, I didn't even check for that. I just.
Got extras? You can send them back my way if you
I've
want to.
got one extra.
Okay,
This mine.
thanks.
Yes.
Kinda
Okay,
Okay.
Kent, take it away.
tell me I'm moving close.
Yes, I have it up on the screen. You have the paper copy in front of you. Our VP group spent a lot of time on this, but what we're presenting to you today is pretty simple recommendation for next year. We are recommending that the in-district or Butler County student tuition and fee rate remain the same as it was last year, $102 per credit hour. The in-state out-district portion of the in-state and the outstate and international, we're recommending a $4 increase on each of those. So that's the tuition and fees, and on the sheet, it breaks down the amount that's going to tuition and the amount that's going to fees. The other part of the recommendation deals with the technology fee, but I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. Like I said, it's a pretty simple recommendation, but if you have comments or questions, we'd like to field those. Julie, I think you're.
Am I the only one? I don't want to look.
You're the first hand.
Well, I'm just gonna repeat what I repeated last year. I'd really like to see a lot less tuition for the in-county students of Butler County. And I understand that may be hard to get to, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. And starting with that 2024 $102, I would really like to reduce that to 85, at the worst case $95. However, you have to do that in the other spreads. That's what I would like, because eventually I would like that number to be a lot less than that. So that being said, turn it over to somebody else who has a comment.
I got one. Just thinking about this, I would like to knock in county down to at least 100 even. And just for simplicity's sake, for good, I mean, can we just knock off the change? I mean, 126.50, 122.50. It's even on our billboard. It's like, hey, just I would just soon make, I mean, about what, 70% of our students come from Wichita, so out of county. I wouldn't mind $140 or so. I know that scares people to raise it, but we had no raise last year and quite a bit of inflation. So that's just my 2 cents.
I know Hutchison is raising theirs $124 in state, 114 in county.
Not total. That's what their amount is going to be raised to. They're not raising it that much.
Oh, they're okay.
No, it would be raised to that amount from wherever they are now. Yeah. That would be devastating for them to go up that much
Okay.
total. Yeah.
Mary Martha?
Is there any way we have other facilities, college institutions, Wichita, and see what they're doing for next year?
We can probably get that. Well, I don't know. Institutions are really keep that stuff close to their chests until it has to be published. What we can do is pull the costs from last year, because already that's on the Board of Regents website. We could get that to you for comparison, but the likelihood of being able to get anything that's been documented yet from any of the other institutions is probably not going to be, we won't have a complete list if we can get anything at all.
Sounds good.
The only thing would be, we would potentially have some proposed information that would come from the Regents institutions, because they have to present that at the Board of Regents meetings. But the community and technical colleges typically don't share that information until they absolutely have to publish it.
So Shelby, were you saying like to get rid of the 50 cents, either bump it up to 127, 187? Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, at the least, I'd say 130. I mean, my opinion is Butler's the closest to Wichita, and how close are all the other community colleges? They're a decent drive. $3 a gallon of gas. If you're talking $10 a credit hour, 12 credit hours, it's $120 divided by $3 a gallon by 15 miles a gallon. We're competitive regardless if we raise our price a little bit. I mean, at the most, they're gonna go to WSU and pay 40% more. I mean,
And I'm not sure that your thinking is probably completely accurate. I mean, I understand what
I'm
you're
just
saying.
ballparking it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but our out district enrollment is where we're losing enrollment. And so the more that we increase the tuition, the more that will potentially impact those enrollment numbers.
Right.
They will go where they get the best price. And so,
Or they'll move
and
to
they,
Butler County.
no, they won't move to Butler County.
Well, if it's cheap.
No, they won't. Not
Well,
if there are Wichita students living there and working there. But the other thing is that students now will piece together their schedules. They'll do online, they'll take classes from multiple institutions depending upon what their work and travel schedules are and stuff like that. They're looking for the best deal. And I think Esam and Jessica can validate that from your conversations with students, and Esam, your research on, as part of the tuition fees team that's really looked into this. You guys have looked at this since last fall, right? Have really researched this since last fall. So I'd let Jessica, why don't you, do you want to speak to some of that from admissions and advising and what you hear?
Yeah.
You probably need to come up to a microphone.
From our vantage point, students are going to enroll in an online class before they drive to another institution. So they'll either take an online class from us or they'll go to another community college and take an online class. So we're charging those students the in-state, so that non-district rate. And so that's typically what they're going to do. So that's something we need to keep in mind. We do need to keep in mind that we need to stay competitive with where WSU Tech is when it comes to their gen eds, that they publish those costs. And then also the other surrounding community colleges like Cowley, Hutch, Pratt.
I have a question, Jessica. Go ahead.
Kim, go ahead. You have it.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the trend is with regard to online versus in person. I mean, over the last, say, 5 years, or even especially since COVID. I mean, how quickly is that climbing and what's that looking like?
Well, I don't have the exact percentage, but our online enrollment has been increasing for years,
Right.
even before COVID. So it's just going to continue to go up because students tend to choose that option. But then also academics has come forward with hybrid and high flex options as well for those students that really like the face-to-face and the flexibility of the online.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I see what you're saying and I agree that they will go to wherever the best deal is. So going forward, I think what needs to be, we have to pay really close attention to is just our footprint in regard to how much we have, how many buildings we have, like even on this campus. Because I mean, like I know Pitt State is tearing down a building right now because they just don't need them. So I just think it's a matter of moving with the times and structuring the college so that it can survive the changes.
I can
So-
tell you that Tom in academics has paid very close attention to the number of sections that we need, the locations where they are, the fill rate on those, and consolidating sections and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of that's happening in the academic area. And so we are paying attention to that. Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Right,
the
Martha,
point.
did you
Like
have
we have a
Did you have
lot.
a comment?
I did. When you take an online class, do you charge in-district tuition?
Depends on.
Depends on where they are, correct? Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure on that. Thank you.
Julie?
I was just wondering, I know a couple of years ago, and I haven't gone down there and driven up to the door this year, but is Kelly still taking or still teaching downtown with WSU's permission? You know, the big sign they have on the overpass. And they were last year, at least that's what
I know that they're an enrollment site. I don't know how many courses, if any, they're offering there.
Last I knew, just basics, like 3 or 4, that was it, like English.
And what was our rationale behind going up roughly, what, 4% on the in-state numbers, but less than that on the out-of-state international? I mean, why $4 for everybody as opposed to a percentage
Yeah,
increase?
That's a good question. From a revenue standpoint, a lot of a high percentage of outstate students are scholarshiped. That's why they're here for an activity usually. So it's sort of a wash. It doesn't bring us much revenue to go higher than that. And on the international, actually, it's so price sensitive that raising it based on the model that we use actually reduces our revenue.
I know last year, we specifically went neutral on out-of-state, or excuse me, international, right?
We dropped international.
Did
State
we,
level, yeah.
did we see a positive result in enrollment
Yes.
to core? Was it revenue positive?
That's something I think I don't have the answer.
I believe it was.
We-
I'd have to double check, but
I'm sorry.
We had an significant increase in international enrollment. And I think some of that could be attributed to the tuition change, but also just the change in political climate, reopening from COVID. But it's anticipated that those numbers will continue to increase. So
You
our
don't think-
international should look
So
good.
we don't think the increase in tuition this year is gonna negatively impact those increasing enrollment on the international side. And I know it's not a huge driver in terms of our revenue, but I'm just curious.
I don't know for certain if it will or not.
It's,
It's a risk.
and it's interesting when I'll get that document for you that shows the other community and technical college tuition rates, tuition and fees and everything. There's a number of institutions, of the border colleges that don't charge a difference between in-district or in-state and out-of-state tuition. I mean, a lot of it depends upon where you're located and who your university partners are and things like that. And so it's difficult to kind of find a pattern, I guess I would say, from looking at all the institutions across the state. I will tell you, I think, again, this year will either be the community college #1 or #2 that has the highest differential between our in-district, our home county students and out-of-district students. Last year, I think we were second highest and will likely be in that place again. I think Dodge was higher maybe than we were, but I have to go back and look at that list. So our spread now of $26.50 between, or 24.5 between in-district and out-district will be one of the close to the largest among all the community and technical colleges.
Nice.
Actually, the technical colleges don't charge a difference between, they don't have the in-district and in-state stuff. Theirs is just in-state and out-of-state usually, and international.
And just a comment from earlier, last year we kept tuition 0% increase for in-state county. We dropped international and we still, the 20th day numbers for fall were down 4.6% or something, the highest of any. So I don't see that not raising it is bringing us more students. It didn't do that at all, and it hasn't for the past several years. So I see, to make that argument, if we raise it $1, no one's going to come. Well, people are not coming anyway, regardless of the price, and we're losing revenue. And then at the same time, we say we've got the best programs, we're the best this, we're the best that. If we are, hey, we're going to charge a couple bucks more because we're awesome. And people aren't gonna, I don't see that they're gonna be scared by a few dollars a credit hour. That's my opinion.
Would it be possible before the meeting to have the current tuition and fee rates for the other
Sure.
community colleges? We won't know what they're changing, but we'll
No.
at least know
Yeah,
how we compare
can
to
get
where
a
we're
baseline.
right now.
I can get it for you.
And it'd also be
Pratt.
helpful, to know how.
It's
much
a
is
whole list.
online
It shows
versus-
everybody.
Mhm.
I'll give you the
Yeah.
whole list.
I'm sorry, Kim, what was that?
It'd also be helpful to know how much of our enrollment is online or heavily influenced by, that capability, because then you're competing with everybody, not just with
Driving
Metro.
distance, true.
Yeah.
Right. A question that I had is my turn.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are the same fees charged for activities and student fees? Are they also charged online?
Yes.
So what benefit besides driving do the students get?
Well, they can have access to college health, to tutoring, to the libraries.
In
to-
person,
What's that?
being in person is a big.
Yeah, same thing as
Well,
being
big
in
deal for
person
a lot
and
of
stuff.
people.
And I mean, we've got a lot of in-person students that'll tell you, I've never stepped in college health before, but it's a cost that's spread across every single student, to help pay for those additional.
Is
support
that part of
services.
the activity fee?
Is
Things
what-
like student health, are they part of the?
Yeah, I
activity
think
fee?
I think it's lumped into, is college health lumped into the activity fee into that?
At some
Part of,
point,
part of it's in the registration.
at some point, I'd really like to know what departments or what of those services account for how much of that activity. I guess that would be important to me to know how much the health is, how much other activities are, they're a part of that fee.
I mean, do we have
What
a,
makes it up?
Yeah, I think actually the health services mostly is funded through the registration.
Is it through
And
registration?
general
Okay.
fund,
Oh, okay.
just general fund generally. The majority of the activity fee. And I have to look, but I think maybe even all of it goes for scholarships. Kind of,
I thought it was split between something. We'll go back and look and see. I
I
was
could-
thinking
I
that it
could-
was split.
I could tell you
We
by
can
the
get-
end of the meeting.
Well, why don't let's get that and I can send that along with the tuition document from the other from KBOR. We can.
any other
Send it.
questions or comments on this before we move on?
Yeah, this may not matter at all. I'm just curious, but what do you consider in district versus out? Do you have to have graduated from a Butler County high school or is it just a
You
Butler
gotta
County
live in Butler
address?
County.
You have to
You
live
have to
there.
have you're supposed to have a physical address in Butler County.
So what's the verification process for that? I mean, can they just like, oh, I'm gonna live at grandma's house this year and I'm Butler County?
They tried.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Some do.
Yeah.
Jessica can speak to this.
Well, so the student's going to fill out their application for admission and we'll use that application to determine their residency. However, if they go to change their residency, then they have to prove that they've lived at that address for a certain period of time. Whether, with its either a driver's license or a bill or that kind of thing. So let's just say, they find out, oh, well, if I say I'm a Butler County resident, then I'm going to get this cheaper rate. It doesn't work that way. They can't just change it automatically. There is a residency period.
And
Yeah,
one kind of related, do we have the 20th day numbers for spring? I assume we do by now.
We do.
And is it an increase of last spring overall?
It's not an increase of last spring, but from day 1 to day 20, from this spring, day 1 to day 20, where we usually lose about 2%. We did not use, actually, without 65 hours. We essentially did not use it. So that's a good news. But from last spring's 20, day to this spring's 20, they were still.
Like ballpark 3%, 4%?
We lost about 1.5.
And I don't know about the other high schools, but I do know that we went through enrollment last week and at El Dorado High School. And like, there are a lot of kids who are juniors that are taking class, a lot of sophomores are taking, and even the early college academy has seen, I don't know what El Dorado's numbers are, but they should see an increase because of the push that the counselors did on that.
We'll get,
Can I ask
let's
one
move
more
on.
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
From last month or 2 weeks ago when we flew out of here real fast, can I have a follow up on your retention rate? Only thing I just wanted to mention is like, if we're constantly losing paying students, but we keep the same base of scholarships and sports and teachers, I mean, we have a certain number that are gonna come here all the time regardless. And if we're bringing in fewer students, that retention rate is going to go up naturally. If we have fewer people coming and the same number staying.
I think we're seeing That is part of why the retention rate went up just a little bit from 60 to 61%. But from 60 to 61, you're probably looking at no more than 20 students from in that category of new students. So I bet that's part of it. I'll also point this out since, you know, the number of employees is kind of tied to the student to faculty ratio. That went down just a little bit. So that's kind of telling us that students are going down. We are kind of doing the attrition of faculty. Not a whole lot, and it went from 18 to 17 and a half. So it's moving in that direction.
Okay, all right, thanks.
We also know that, you know, with retirements and people that are taking other jobs and stuff, we always look at those positions to see if they need to be refilled, and especially in the academic area. And again, that's where Tom's work on fill rates and class sections and class sizes and all those kinds of things come into play when he's deciding, the deans are deciding, you know, do we need to rehire that position in this area specifically? So their academics is really looking at that.
Well, my point is just if we have 60% or 61% of 130,000 credit hours, I would rather have 55% of 185,000 credit hours. I mean, total numbers, percentages are nice to talk about, but it's still a total numbers game. Is the only thing I was talking about.
We'll need to approve the tuition and fee numbers at the March meeting. So if there's any other information anyone needs, please get that info request to Dr. Kroll sooner rather than later.
And the reason behind needing it approved in March is because we have to get it published because they're starting to enroll students already. So it needs to go in the view book. It needs to go on the website. Advising needs it in admission so that they can start to show students what those costs will be so they can calculate their cost of attendance and stuff. So.
Well, we have the 2023 rates here. So if you could get us all the other, or 2022 rates, that is 2022. So if you could get all the comparable colleges, does that match this first column? The comparable colleges?
that's
you
just
were
already
gonna
said there.
But what I told you is that they're all different. What we have for 2023 is going to match Butler's rates, what are on that paper, but all of the institutions have different rates. So I will get that information for you.
Okay.
And I think the report that's on the KBOR website may show it. I'll have to look at it. It may show a couple of years. So it may have the FY22 and FY23 information on it, but I will dig that out and I'll get it to you. But what you're going to see on there for FY23 that's in front of you now is what was on there for Butler. But it's not going to be exactly the same for all the other institutions because everybody's tuition and fee rates are different.
Right, but it is helpful to us as a management board to understand what our competition is.
That's what I'm going to get for you.
But
Right, but it would have been nice to have it.
Well, I didn't know you wanted it.
That's when the work session is for, is to
Yeah.
identify information we need.
and honestly, I don't think we're competing with Johnson County or
No.
Dodge
No.
City. We're
No,
not
it's
competing
the
with
local ones.
everyone. So, I mean, we'll see a trend, but it's not direct competition.
But I think it's good for you to see what that range is and
But
what
we're
some of
not
those
in
other
the same
institutions are
financial
doing.
situation as Johnson County, so
Nobody.
throw that one out, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're probably.
They're giving it away for free.
They're
It's
probably
like,
the
let's do
one
that.
outlier. Although,
Yeah, yeah.
even with that said, to the extent someone can take an online course at Johnson County, it's no different than an online course here or an online course at Pratt or Dodge City. I mean, geographic location becomes less of an issue. It
Yeah.
sounds like on the online.
Has there ever been any discussion or is it allowed, I guess, why wouldn't it be allowed to charge a different rate for online versus in person? So that we would incentivize people to use us online when we don't have the overhead attached to some things like structures and utilities and things like that. And then maybe charge more for in person.
Well, we used to charge an online fee for anybody that took an online class. But a couple of years ago, we switched that over to the technology access charge. Because so many because we're using technology in every single class, whether it's face-to-face or online, it's the same Canvas technology, same Canvas core shell. So we moved away from an individual fee that online students paid. Again, to spread out that technology cost over all the students now instead of just the online students.
Right. I'm just thinking if there's a set cost that we have for a class, for instance, and the college doesn't gain a lot of overhead with adding online students. then it might make sense to lower those prices to where we're really attractive and people from all over the state look at us and grow that. Just about.
Well, let's move on. We got,
I
Thanks.
just wanted to tell you, I just sent everybody what K-Board has on their site.
Did you find it? Thank you.
thanks very much.
Just before we move on, I did put up the technology access charge here. So that's information that we want you to have.
You
You
got
can see it's a
Here.
small increase, $10 per student per semester for the, yeah. So just wanted you to have that, and if there's discussion, fine. If not, we can go ahead and move on.
Can I bring up one more thing real quick? It'll take a minute. Yeah, there is a national competitor to online universities starting to try to get accreditation, and their goal is to get a 4-year degree down to like $5,000. So, and it's gonna get pretty tight in the future if that does come about. So,
Are they going to be accredited?
Yeah.
yeah, that's what they're working on right now. So,
Okay, let's move on. We've been in front of you now is the breakdown for lodging.
I think I
Sure.
can get the FY23 stuff
Okay.
too. This
Okay.
goes
Yeah,
up to
it's not listed.
FY22. I think I can get FY23.
So meals and residence halls, Kent, is issue also?
Bill Rinkma.
Oh, Bill.
yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna recommend that we raise the room and board rate for next year. West Hall would go, well, the meal plan is gonna be $2,620 regardless of which residence hall you live in. That's a 19 meal plan like we have. It's going up by the CPI. So the overall, which is 8.3% for next year. The room rates are, our recommendation is going up roughly 3%. So overall, the increase would be 6.37% for those that are living in the residence halls. They're broken out by west. Cummins and east are the same price. And then the apartments are a little bit more because of the common living space that they have there. We've also looked at the fire science residence hall up at the fire science building and increasing that by 3% as well. So that's what we'll bring forward to you in March for our room and board rates.
Is the fire residence on here?
Yes.
Under what?
Fire science is on this bill.
Oh, it's not,
It's on the TFA, I think. that
it's
you
going to be on
submitted.
the TFA. Right now, the current rates are $980. And for next year, it'll go to $1,010.
Do they get meal? plan
They can
too?
have a meal plan if they want it, but it's not required. The residence halls on campus require it, but the residence halls up at the fire science building do not.
And how many people can that sleep? Fire science? 10. 10?
10.
10, that's what I knew.
and the loan we took out for that building, is that only for the residents or is it for also more of the utility of the building itself? Do we
The
still
building
owe,
itself.
For the building itself.
we still over $1 million on that building? 10 students a semester.
But there's
What
classrooms and
There's
stuff. in there.
classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
There's classrooms
Uh-huh.
and stuff in there. EMT meets up there and fire science and it gets the
There's quite a
buildings up
few
there.
cars that are
Yeah,
parked up
it's
there
a
during the
pretty
day.
busy place.
You guys should go and tour it. It would really makes you proud.
Take your class.
What?
Take your kids there.
I don't have any money for transportation. I know.
Bring a bus.
But we had the college go out and look at it last year and
Yep. I didn't make it.
Anybody have any questions or need additional information on, this will also be one that we'll have on our action list.
Bill, how full were all our residence halls last year?
We start out in the fall, we're around at 98% to
Mhm.
99% occupancy, and then we lose kids at semester.
Mhm.
Down to around 82-83% is what we are this year. This budget is pretty conservative because we budgeted on an 85% occupancy rate. We've held out rooms the last 3 years because of COVID.
Mhm.
Where we just have empty beds. I mean, intentionally, we're not planning on doing that moving forward.
But you're pretty much full up every year.
Every fall, we usually have a
Waiting
waiting.
list.
that's the point I'm trying to make to everybody. We raised 10% last year on the residence hall and all this, and we're still full. We're raising it again, 6.3. We're still gonna be full.
We didn't really, I don't think it's 10%, but we raised it.
It was close to it last year. because
Thought
of
it
hail-
balanced
hail
out.
pollution.
I thought it balanced out to
But
not.
how many of those, how, of the overall people that live in the dorm, how many are on scholarship and how many are on athletics? In the athletics?
I don't have that off the top of my head. We hold rooms out for fine arts, we hold rooms out for athletics.
Can you break that down and show it to us next month?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
get you a breakdown from our housing people, number of beds we serve for each activity.
Also, what's the big difference between West Hall and then Easton Cummins? Is it just like age and how nice it is?
Well, yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. West Hall is the oldest one. It was built in 67. They have the community bathrooms, which nobody likes.
Right.
And the rooms are significantly smaller than Easton Cummins.
I feel like if the demand's that high though for residency, that you could probably bump that one up and yeah, it's gonna be the last one to fill up, but if you need a place, you don't have any other choice. You're gonna use it.
Well,
you know,
West is also not accessible. It only has stairs in it. It doesn't have an elevator.
There's no elevator, it's not handicapped accessible, and
It's a big cement
Uh,
block building.
we're trying to keep it as affordable as we can for some of our student population.
How did you
Because
get,
it is significantly less, but it's not near as nice. The square footage in the rooms is significantly less. I don't have that in front of me, but I could get it for you. They're significantly smaller.
What kind of a
Bill,
contract? Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
right, oh, wait.
how did you get the name Cummings?
Bill Cummins.
Bill Cummins was the dean of students at one time at Butler, and that's where it came
That's where it
from.
came from.
Long time being.
Yeah.
Long time supporter.
Forrest, you had a question?
What kind of a contract did a student sign on housing? If they decide to leave the semester, they own that in for the second semester?
It depends on the situation. They cannot leave the residence hall. It's a year-long contract unless they graduate or unless they move home and live with their parents, and that requires a certified letter that's signed by a notary and that has to be within 25 miles of, I think it's 25 miles of the campus. Otherwise, they have to pay for the room for the spring semester. They don't have to keep their meal contract if they move out, but they have to pay for the rooms.
I see where Emporia State, since they built all those new dorms there.
Any other? Good. What's next?
Campus Logic. Jessica, you want to talk about Campus Logic? I sent the board, some of the overview information that you provided about the ability to streamline the verification process for financial aid. I did not send them the copy that's being passed around now that's got the comparative prices on it because it's confusing, I think, and I wanted you to be able to explain it.
Hopefully I can.
Yeah, I mean, because I was confused by it to start off with too.
Okay. I'm just trying to pull up that.
But it's so anyway, I'll let you go ahead and go through your, kind of your overview and your notes and stuff.
So Campus Logic is a product that will help us with our financial aid verifications. Currently, we have students that are selected for verification for their financial aid file, and it can take months, weeks to get the documents that are required in order to complete their file. So we've contacted Campus Logic. We had a demo with them. We've also talked to other institutions locally that use Campus Logic, and that is Barton and then also Hutch. And they have had nothing but good things to say about the product. And they say that verification process can go from weeks or months to a day or two, because the students are able to upload the information just from their phone to our secure system. Information is already, it's pre-populated and pulled into their form. So it simplifies the process for the student and then also for our staff members. So that's the verification piece. Then there's also a way for us to use their software to make our schedule bills a little bit easier to read. So the students will have a better way to understand, I think, the costs that they owe. So it's in a lot nicer format. And then the third thing is the net price calculator. Right now, that's something that the Department of Ed provides, but it is pretty generic and it is not very easy for students to navigate. And so Campus Logic would be able to help us make ours specific to Butler and branded and that kind of thing. So it would definitely help our students when it comes to comparing costs of Butler to other institutions.
I think what I emailed to you folks yesterday too was that in 21-22, there were almost 1,300 students, Butler students that were selected for verification. And so that's what Jessica's talking about, is that for those 1,300 students, it eliminates errors, it saves time for that verification process. And then the campus communicator that she's talking about in 21-22, we emailed out more than 5,700 letters
Yes.
from Butler to students. And so again, it would help cut down and more automate that process for our folks. It's a real time saver and efficiency creator for staff on this end, as well as helping students and parents.
Right, and thank you for mentioning that, because really that was one thing I left out, was that award letters for financial aid. And I know that, like, if you were to look at our award letter compared to the one that they've mocked up for us, it's like night and day. So it would, I think, really make the students help them make their decision about choosing Butler, and just help them with the process overall. The institutions that use this software have said that it's helped tremendously with students understanding the information that they receive.
Jessica, when she emailed me, identified that the cost would be covered through the technology designated fund. The implementation fee, the one-time implementation fee could be covered through the technology designated fund. The financial aid budget can cover part of this. The bulk of it would be covered through the strategic innovation fund that we've set aside for, for things
Right,
like this, which is, per federal stimulus funding that's been there. So.
Right, and so we're asking for this, it's not an increase to the budget, it's budget dollars that have already been identified. If we sign with Campus Logic by March 31st, then we will receive, over the 5-year contract period, it'll be $155,000 savings. After the March 31st, the price would go up for us.
So that's kind of why it's being presented now at work session, is because we would potentially have it on the March agenda for approval. So.
Julie,
Do you have any idea what the student rate of return would be, or how many students would have to enroll for us to break even?
I don't have that information with me.
That's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not a good product. I'm not saying that other successes have been exemplified. All I'm saying is, A, that's a lot of money, and B, I'd like to see how many would have to enroll for it to break even. I mean, would it have to be 2 years worth of 1,500 a year?
No, it's not very many. I know that. However, and we would like to think that our enrollment would increase from this, because it does simplify the process tremendously. But the other institutions that we talk to cannot attribute it to enrollment increase. And so that's why really approaching it from an efficiency standpoint for our students and staff is probably the safest avenue.
Well, and I mean, it's about, if you just say on average over the next 5 years, it's about, $76,000 a year. And so you could take that amount per year and divide it out by the cost of attendance for our students and figure out the number of students that would.
And doesn't take too many staff members to get up to that much.
No, that's one,
be about
that's
$10 a
1.5
student, I
person
think.
salary.
Be $9 or $10 a student, more or less.
So
Any other questions?
Most everybody's.
and I would, oh, go ahead.
Apply.
Julia.
What made you look at campus logic?
Well, we looked at it a few years ago. I think it was even before COVID. Because we were looking for a way for students to do secure upload of documents. And at the time, we just didn't think that it was feasible to go this route. So IS helped us create a process to do that. And then now, just from an efficiency standpoint and our very competitive market, we think being able to have this product will help in the long run. Bill, did you have something to add?
Yes, I would add to that over the last few years, Aleutian has bought Campus Logic. And so a few years ago, when we looked at this the first time, there was a lot of integration work that we would have had to contract on the back end to make this really flow and create the efficiencies we needed to. Aleutian bought Campus Logic. So Aleutian is the parent company of Banner that we use. And so it's all now built in and integrated with the systems that we have, which makes it more feasible for us to say, okay, yes, we can bring it in and we can support it as well, because we don't have to then maintain a bunch of homemade API or integrations on the back end. So that was, for us, that was the big change that changed my conversation. And Jessica and her team have been interested in it for a long time because of what it can do on their side. But it created a capacity issue for us that has been, I think, mitigated with Aleutian buying Campus Logic and then integrating it. They did all the integration on the back end.
Any other questions? Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Jessica.
Oh, sorry.
Let's have Bill talk just a little bit about, I think one of the other things I put in the email is that with the HVAC renovation that's happening in the gym, they're going to start tearing everything up in March. And a lot of the sound wiring that's in there is original to the building. There's been all kinds of stuff that's been pieced and patched together over time. And so Bill wants to talk to you a little bit about the possibility of replacing that, doing the work to replace the sound system in the gym now. While the floors are covered, the lifts are in there, the ceilings are all exposed, all of that work. It makes sense from an efficiency perspective, but it also makes sense from the standpoint of upgraded wiring doesn't exist anymore. We blow out speakers all the time. We don't have any control over sound in zones in the gym and all of that sort of stuff. So Bill and Matt, I don't know, you guys can talk about that. How about that?
So I can speak to it a little bit first. So the power plant of the gym was built in 1965. We have to remember that gymnasium hosts women's volleyball, Butler men's and women's basketball, the nurses pinning ceremony every year. At the end of each semester, actually, the annual Butler honors ceremony, early college academy graduation ceremony. And it's also a venue for a ton of summer camps and different things that we are able to host in there. We know that the audio system itself in there is about 40 years old, 44 years old now. We actually dug into it the other day and found that the wiring that's in there is original to the building in 1965. We have, to Dr. Kroll's point, each year I spend $10,000 to $20,000 just kind of replacing pieces and parts to keep it going. Because of the age of the wiring, we get a lot of backfeed in there that has blown out our preamps and all those things, speakers. The building's going to be torn apart. It's the right opportunity for us to do this. If we wait and do this after the building's put back together, it increases our construction costs. We have some engineering estimates. We're out to RFP right now, so I don't have any final numbers, and I will have those at the March meeting. But the engineering estimate is that really says that we're going to be at potentially about $120,000 for a full replacement of the sound system in there to be able to bring it up to current specs and be able to use it in all of the different ways that we use that sound system. Again, it's more than just a PA system for a gymnasium, right? I mean, with the events that we host in there as well. Again, I think it's important to remember that that it extends beyond just athletics. We're not hosting the pinning ceremony this year and those things because it's going to be under construction. Be the first time in a long time that we haven't been able to host those in the gym. We want to get back to that spot. Some of you that have been to the pinning ceremonies and some of these other events in there over the years, you've noticed that we've had to wheel in extra equipment to make it work. Our spare equipment ages as well. So there's been in the last 10 years, like 4 different times we've had to rent equipment to put in there to make this work. And so our goal is to get it replaced, bring it up to current standards and be able to really utilize that system for what we need. We've gone out to RFP. All of the vendors that are answering the RFP are local to this area. There are no vendors in Butler County that do that level of wiring and that level of installation. So the vendors that are responding are from Wichita.
Plus with all the new media center, like the media that's at the athletic events and stuff like that.
Sure, it'll tie into all that as well. And create some ease of use. We're trying to standardize the equipment that's in there. It's another challenge that we have. Dan Boyd, who's our AV technician for the college, is trying to keep that piece together. We're standardizing it with the same type of equipment we have in the Clifford Stone room and some of the different areas so that he can better support it, but also so that pieces are interchangeable. If something does break or malfunction, we're waiting on the warranty part, we can pull something from another location and keep it working without me having to go out and try and piece stuff together from things we find on Amazon or on eBay. I mean, it's tough finding parts for that old system. I'll tell you that. So I wanted everyone to kind of be up to speed as to where we're at. The RFPs are coming back this week. We'll have the RFP bids and the topic for action in the March meeting so that we can hopefully, if everyone's on board, get it approved so that it can happen during the construction.
You say that the engineering estimate for this project is roughly 120, but you got the RFPs out.
RFPs are out. The engineering estimate was, the top end is going to be, it won't exceed 120. He wanted to,
That's not the whole project.
that's the whole project.
That's the whole project.
That's the whole sound project. That's not the HVAC project. That's the whole sound project, all in, all done.
Is there any money available in capital outlay for this? Did it qualify?
It's a capital expense. Yeah, yes. I would say,
Do you have any extra that you didn't put in the door locks in?
I don't have any extra money now.
Did you use that?
The doors was.
I don't have any extra.
The doors wasn't approved.
It's there though.
You're talking about the capital mill levy outlay fund. Yes, this is not, from our internal discussions, this is not something that we're requesting net new additional budget dollars for. We find it within our funds or our budgets today. And I would, to your point, Julie, I would say, sure, that's a potential place where it's coming from, maybe. But there's not asking for additional net new budget dollars for this. I think that we've identified internal funds to pull that from. But again, I wanted to make sure you guys had this in front of you, because if we put this off and we don't do it during this construction, then that engineering cost goes up a ton, because you have to recover the floors.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We
Honestly, we didn't. It's one of those things that we'd always piece together, and
Well, it's been hard to hear during basketball games, I'll tell you.
got to talking with Ireland and facilities. And honestly, this came up after the last time I had to buy a new amp, which was right before basketball season to put in there. And we got to talk about, like, guys, can we just replace this? And everyone said the same thing that we always say. That's $100,000, right? And so we've kind of put it off. This is the best time to do it.
Linda, do you have a question?
My question is just, is there other electrical work that's that old that needs to be upgraded also?
Throughout the campus or in that building? Yeah, so sure. And that's part of this HVAC is upgrading those other electrical pieces. I know that Ireland's got a lot of that worked into the HVAC work that's happening. Within the classrooms and all those, over the years, those pieces have been upgraded, but that gym has kind of stayed intact throughout most of this. And so that's kind of the area that has not been touched, mainly because of access. And it's difficult with the high ceilings. We got to cover the floors and do all these things. And so yes, all of the HVAC and electrical pieces are going to be fixed within the gymnasium during this project, which is the original HVAC project that you all approved for them.
Well, I was just thinking about lighting. You'd hate to get all this done and then all of a sudden you decide the wiring for lighting is insufficient.
Yeah, I mean, awesome lighting and pyrotech. I mean, at the end of the day, we want it all in there, but I think that they've got it. They've got all the rest of that figured out. They're replacing all the lighting in there. I think throughout a lot of the building, they're upgrading a lot of that piece of it with this project.
Yeah.
This was just a big piece that was overlooked in what we need to do.
Certainly in the gym part of it, because, you know, the HVAC units, the old ones hang down in there, and when they take all of that out, I mean, it's just gonna change the whole ceiling area in there. So I'm sure the lighting is part of that, but we can find out.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've got the plans. It is. The lighting in the gym is all going to be fixed and replaced. And made current too with LED and all of that. So I just wanted to get this good in front of you guys so you knew that it was coming in March. So I don't surprise you in March at the meeting with it.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
HLC?
Yeah, insurance argument. We, here. Obviously, you know that we're in the middle of, well, actually, we're not, I think we're past the middle part of developing the insurance argument, but want to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about the insurance argument. The different folks that really kind of have written the different criteria are going to do a brief overview of those for you. I know some of you have had some trouble accessing that document, but I think if you just click on the link that I sent you, it should take you directly to that document. You don't, it's not in the trustee SharePoint folder. Just use the link that I emailed to you and open it up and it'll take you directly to the insurance argument. But obviously, this is the document that we have to compile and submit to the Higher Learning Commission prior to their visit. This is our 10-year accreditation visit to Higher Learning Commission. The site team will be in here again April 17th and 18th. They'll actually leave on the 19th, but they'll be on campus the 17th and the 18th. And it really, we have to write that assurance argument based on that document that you have in front of you that lists the 5 different criterions and the core components and the sub criteria. We have to write to each one of those sections, and we have to identify documents and pieces of evidence that validate what we're saying. And so we have to say to the Higher Learning Commission that based on the criteria that you've set for us to be accredited, here's how we're answering that, here's how we're doing it, and here's the evidence that we're providing to show you that we are doing it. This is our opportunity to talk about the strengths, the challenges that we have, the improvements that need to be made, or the solutions that we're coming up with to fix the things that, we think need to be fixed. The assurance argument that you have access to is we're continuing to work on that. I think Heather and I are planning to upload the assurance argument into the HLC portal this week and continue to make edits. We will have to relink every piece of evidence, almost more than 600 pieces of evidence once it gets uploaded into the portal. So it takes some time, and so we'll continue to make those edits over the next couple of weeks before we have to hit submit to the Higher Learning Commission. The site team will prepare. As part of their preparation coming in, they'll read the assurance argument. Most peer reviewers will tell you that they will go back and they will look at a year's worth of board minutes and or videos. If you've got them, they will look for online information about institutions. They'll scan our website. They will be prepared coming in, and because they've shortened those visits, those site team visits now, they will come in very specifically with questions from the assurance argument that they want to ask, questions that come up while they're here that they will ask, and then they'll allow some, time for people to ask them questions. But they will meet with individual groups while they're here on Monday and Tuesday morning. Your meeting with them is on Monday afternoon, remember, from 4:15 to 5:15.
What was
In
the
this room.
date? Date.
17th.
Thank you.
And it won't be in this room because this is where this is gonna be their home base. So we'll probably be downstairs in one of the rooms, but we'll get that to you.
Could you repeat the time again? I'm sorry.
4:15 to 5:15,
April 17th.
April 17th, yeah. And so what I want to do now is to have Heather and Julio and Donnie and John and Esom were each writers for the different criterion. Want them to just give you a really brief overview of what each of the criterion focus on. Maybe give you a couple of examples of some of the things in those criterion that it speaks to that we have to speak to. And then let's maybe wait for questions at the very end, but they're going to each give you a little bit of a brief overview. Julio's going to talk about criterion 2, and then I'm going to specifically take a few minutes to talk about 2C criterion subcomponents or core component 2C, because that one really speaks to the board specifically. But Heather, if you want to start us off, and then we'll take some time at the end to answer questions, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about Brian Inbody will be here next Monday to do a mock visit for us, and he wants to spend a little bit of time talking to the board that day too, if you're available. I'll tell you about that.
When
Heather,
is
take it
that?
away.
When is that?
Next month. But I'll give you the details here.
Okay, well, criterion 1 was the criterion that I wrote, and it is all about the mission of the college. So within that, there are various sub-criterion that you can read in the assurance argument. But the overarching criterion is the institution's mission is clear and articulated publicly, and it guides the institution's operations. So as you read through that assurance argument and through those sub-criterion, you will see explanations of what we presented to you with the approval of our mission and vision, how we went and got feedback from students, faculty, and staff when we wrote that and edited it. You will see explanation of the way that the mission and vision is articulated throughout campus. You see it in our marketing materials, it's in our employee handbooks, things like that. It's on the TVs around campus. So we try to put it out there so that people know what our mission is. Another kind of bullet point, highlighting that the academic and student services offerings are consistent with our mission. So, from recruitment to graduation, we really try to focus in on that through both student services and our academic programs. Obviously, it highlights that education is the primary focus of our organization, that we work to build relationships with external stakeholders, with, different groups, but it all comes back to that focus of education and fulfilling that mission. And then last but not least, we try to respond to external constituencies based on our mission. Again, we work closely with external stakeholders. A good example of that is our partnerships with business and industry through our advisory committees. So we try to seek that feedback for what the market is looking for in terms of hiring, so that we can tailor our programs that way. Again, fulfilling the mission of the institution.
Thanks. Julio wrote criterion 2. This team has been in place. We've been working on this for way more than a year. Bill Sperry put together a great timeline to try and get this all accomplished and done over a period of time. And so this team's actually been together working on this.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I wrote criterion 2, which is covering integrity and ethical behavior, ethical conduct. Discusses fair and ethical behavior amongst the Board of Trustees, faculty and staff, and the institution at large. Section 2A discusses integrity in financial, academic, human resources, and auxiliary functions. Financially, we comply with several state statutes and institutional policies. And the budget development manual contains the calendar for the annual budget development process. Our financial office presents budget and financial information regularly to the board and is audited externally every year. Academically, our course catalog contains all academic information, including programs of study, requirements for admission, financial aid, academic progress, and academic appeals. Faculty are required to complete numerous trainings to manage the courses through Canvas and to teach online blended high flex courses. This section also discusses online course development and compliance of accessibility and copyright laws. Our HR office is responsible for ensuring that Butler remains an equal opportunity employer and is committed to an inclusive, non-discriminatory environment. The employee handbook outlines expectations of all Butler employees, including the standards for best ethical practices. And all employees are required to complete the annual compliance training that covers FERPA, ethics, ADA, harassment, non-discrimination, and Title IX. Moving on to section 2B, which discusses how Butler presents itself clearly and completely to its students and to the public, primarily through its website. Anyone can access information regarding admissions requirements, academic function or information, student profiles, academic news, fine arts events, and student government, student organizations. Moving on to 2D, that discusses our commitment to academic freedom and freedom of expression among faculty, staff, and students. It also discusses the master agreement and the faculty code of ethics. Also mentioned in 2D is Butler's Inclusion Council, which is a group of faculty and staff representatives that coordinate activities that promote Butler's inclusion, mission, and vision. Finally, my last section was 2E, which presents Butler's Institutional Review Board and Library Services. And it also discusses Butler's commitment to academic and honesty and to integrity, which is presented in the course catalog and student handbook. So, my summary.
Thank you.
right, thank you.
2C as part of this, again, because its criterion is really focused on integrity, ethical and responsible conduct. 2C specifically asks questions about the board, talks about the governing board is autonomous to make decisions in the best interest of the college in compliance with board policies and to ensure the institution's integrity. And so in that section, as you read through that, there's a lot of discussion about board training and the board meeting legal and fiduciary responsibilities and the work that the board should do to preserve and enhance the college. Whether the board protects themselves and preserves their independence from undue outside influence or from elected officials or ownership interests, those kinds of things. And then the board delegating the day-to-day management to the administration and letting the faculty oversee the academic matters. This is a difficult section to write. And I wrote it because we all know that we've got some board challenges. And if you read through that, I want you to be aware that we've talked about some of the things that the board, as far as board policies and some of the complaints that we've had and some things like that. But I want you to read through that and be aware of that. There isn't anything in there that's not accurate, that's not documented. But this site team coming in is going to have some awareness of that and is going to focus on that when they come. And when Brian is here next week for the mock visit, I think he'll help you guys understand that a little bit more. But that's an area of concern for the site team. So please make sure you read through that. And if you've got some questions about it, we'll have time to talk about those. Johnny, did criterion 3.
Criterion 3. Best criteria.
Yes.
I had the absolute pleasure of writing Criterion 3, which is all over the quality education that we provide wherever and however we deliver it. So 3A focuses on that education, the programs we're offering, the transferability of courses, how that's all done, both with us, but also with the state of Kansas, how KCOG oversees some of those outcomes and those expectations, and the way we have the relationships between ourselves and the four-year universities, the transferability and all of those. I'm going to take 2 seconds to explain one important part of this because it'll come up in chapter 4. At center of this is our PACT statement. You may be familiar with it, you may not. But the PACT statement is a combination of a lot of sort of education across disciplines. So I'm going to quickly go through them just so you know what they are. P is for personal development. So this is like personal responsibility, the value of personal growth, challenge as part of our education. A is analytical thinking, logical conclusions, supporting evidence, problem solving, communication. Sorry, C is communication. Can you communicate in the English language? T is technology. So this is documenting capabilities and being able to use instruments of technology. We can think about this both in terms of software, but also things like blood pressure gauges, right? For nurses that. So that's a central part of this, because that is a central part of how we are kind of codifying our education across all of the different ways we deliver it. 3B, it talks about how we're offering programs where students are mastering modes of intellectual inquiry and developing skills for a changing environment. So this deals with that we're an avid institution. So we have evidence about that through that achievement via individual determination and how we weave that into our educational programs and our teaching. Recognizing our inclusion council, and we have a lot of documentation about what our inclusion council does to help students prepare for a changing environment, a diverse environment, and all the things that we do outside the classroom to help students grow in that way. So this includes things like concerts and our fine arts presentations, student organizations, art gallery, culinary events. All of that's going to be included here as a way to demonstrate that we are sort of giving students the best education experience possible. 3C is over faculty and staff being credentialed appropriately. We follow the HLC credentialing guidelines. We do that very well, something we're proud of. So we have documentation to show that. We show how we're doing it both with the faculty here full-time, adjunct faculty, those faculty in high schools teaching, and we give a lot of documentation to show the full credentialing report as evidence for them that they can look at. And faculty development, what our faculty development team does with our professional development days and different programs. And finally, 3D is support for student learning, which is all the different support services that we offer around things like disability and college health, admissions and registrar, ed tech, IS, all the different support mechanisms. So we provide them a lot of information about all the things around the classroom. And that is it. I am done.
Thank you.
John Craig, Dr. Craig. Or soon to be Dr. Craig, I guess. Yeah, criterion 4.
Yeah, criterion 4, as Donnie mentioned, there's some overlap with criterion 3. But criterion 4 is also focused on teaching and learning, but more so from evaluation and improvement. And the processes that we do to make sure that we are in a continuous improvement and have efforts for those that we're engaging at the institution. The overarching description for this is the institution demonstrates responsibility for the quality of its educational programs, learning environments, and support services. And it evaluates the effectiveness for student learning through process design to promote continuous improvement. There's 3 core components with sub-criterion in each one of those. Just some highlights from each one. 4A is really focused on program evaluation, program review, how we do that, and the triangulation of program viability assessment through the Provide Committee, academic, non-academic program review, and how that informs the budget development process. It also covers in a section how we transcript credit and how we do that for transfer credit in programs like reverse transfer, credit for prior learning, military articulations, apprenticeship programs. And it also talks about the curriculum team process and the cycle that we do for review and making sure that our student learning outcomes, how those are implemented and then adopted by the institution. Section 4B really focuses on student learning outcome assessment, which kind of referred to as SLOs. At Butler, we moved to what we call PPLOA, which is Program Pathway Learning Outcome, assessment. We do assessment at the course level for every course. MSATs are embedded in Canvas shells. All instructors use them and submit those at the end of the term for any course that's being assessed. And then analysis is conducted at the department, program, and institutional level, which ties back into the PAC skills that Donnie just introduced. One of the big initiatives that we've accomplished in the last year is co-curricular assessment. We are now doing assessment for tutoring, personal development courses, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, soccer, art, and theater. The last section, 4C, focuses on student retention, persistence, and completion. Some of the highlights in that section are the efforts of the academic retention team, how we're using Aviso, and how Inclusion Council are engaging underrepresented populations, student populations. Some examples are the mentoring teams that we use in Aviso, where students are assigned a pathway navigator, which is a leader chair of a program, a pathway guide, which is a milestone course instructor, and a pathway mentor, which is a PDX course instructor. And also how we use feedback from surveys like the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, known as the CESE, and our own internal research, which was most recently a mixed tier study titled Interconnected Factors Affecting Student Retention, which produced 4 main themes between academic, financial, personal, and family factors. So, thank you.
Thanks, John. Dr. Esom, big criterion 5.
The best one, Donnie.
That's the bottom number 1.
Last but not the least. Thank you. I've been, my former boss, Dr. George, used to say that assurance arguments are like legal briefs, that you have to be forceful in your evidence. All the evidence has to be there. You have to be polite and you have to cover all the bases and put a good foot forward. And that's what we have tried to do. Criterion 5 is about institutional effectiveness, resources, and planning. And at the end of the day, what that tries to, the argument we try to make there is we have the people, the plan, the structures, the resources, and the information to execute our mission effectively and continuously. Our people are qualified. And you, in that argument, in that part of the assurance argument, you do see that there is a link to our qualifications of our faculty, which tell you, just like others have mentioned, that we have pretty qualified faculty. Same goes for the rest of our staff. That our planning involves very broad input. You see that as we updated our mission and vision statements, it was not something that Dr. Krell just dreamt up one night. But we got everybody together at different levels up to the point it came here and it was approved. Our structures are aligned to our plans. That means whether there are structures and committees at this level, you have several committees here. We have those at the divisional level. We have those at the departmental level. Some of them are cross-functional committees that some of the others have mentioned. We have those committees and task forces, those structures, to have those plans and execute them effectively. So that's another argument we make in this criteria. We have resources which are available for the outcome of those plans. Our finances are in sound shape. We have resources coming in from multiple streams, including third-party streams like Perkins funding, other grant funding, and all of that is well managed, and it supports what we are doing today and hopefully what we'll be doing in the future as well. And information guides decision-making in creating, updating, and executing those plans. Some of the information we've already talked about. Earlier today, Trustee Brungard asked about online, how many online hours, what percentage we have. So we have that immediately handy. We have some public-facing things. We have certain internal dashboards and other sources of information which continuously allow us to make decisions, again, which are not made because I dreamt it up. Well, sometimes I do have them, but they're based on information. They're based on solid analysis. So ultimately, what we're looking at is we intentionally in our execution of our plans, we are informed in making those decisions, and we are accountable to those we need to be accountable to as to how the outcomes of those decisions are. And at the end of the day, we learn from those decisions and move forward even better.
Thank you. So I know some of you haven't had a chance to review the document in its entirety and maybe have only had a chance to look at it in part, but I think when you do sit down and read through it, it's impressive, the work that's being done here. And you kind of don't really realize that until you look at everything and read the narrative that goes along with each of the sub-criterion to address the requirements that the Higher Learning Commission puts in front of us. It's an impressive document. And I think it speaks to the fact that this is a really, really solid college doing really, really good things. So what questions do you have, knowing that you maybe haven't had a chance to really look at it a whole lot yet? What can we answer for you?
I got through 34 pages.
Did you? Good.
Then the bell rang.
You only have 34 more about.
Yeah, I've got 30. No, well, I got what, 78 total pages, I
it's
think.
78 right now. We still have to edit out some words. We've got a 35,000 word count that we have to hit, and we're about 36. 30,
I did see one
37,000
typo, but
maybe.
put that in on the
Yeah,
correct.
we haven't done our complete editing yet. So
Are you, if I can ask,
sure.
are you fairly confident that 2C item 4 is not going to be an issue?
I think all of 2C will be questioned. I think everything in 2C will be questioned probably. Because we've had concerns for a couple of years. I think as you read through that, you'll see the information that's been presented, both positive. I mean, there's a lot of positive information. There's a lot of, positive stuff. But we've also pointed out the Higher Learning Commission, the site team expects us to point out the problems that we have as well and provide examples of what we're doing to try and mitigate those or solve them. And so in 2C, one of the things that's been written to is the fact that we've done a fair amount of training. We've brought in 2 different groups from ACCT. We've had KCCT training. Sue Gibbons was in. We've done a lot. So there's positive things to address what's being talked about here, but we also have an obligation to point out where our challenges are.
And those are going to be in your document that we can review.
You read right through that. Yep, it's all right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yep, it's right there. There isn't anything in there that's not honest and that's not accurate. It all has to be documented. And I think that that's again why it's important, because and throughout the assurance argument, all of the hyperlinks that are in the assurance argument take you directly to the pieces of evidence to show you what we're presenting to validate the narrative that we're presenting, whether it's in 2C or wherever it is. And so,
Do you suppose they'll have any problem at all? I mean, I'm just asking this question. Do you suppose they are going to have a problem at all with all of the main personnel of the foundation being paid for by the college?
we don't pay for all of the foundation's salaries.
Really?
No, we don't.
Aren't they, shouldn't they be listed on that, what is it, that 990 report or whatever, the ones that we actually
I think this,
don't pay for?
yeah, it's reimbursed. The site team is going to come in from institutions across the nation. And a lot of their, I mean, those institutions all do things differently. So that may, maybe that'll be a question that they raise. I don't know for sure. They're going to probably focus in, they're going to focus in more on, and 2C anyway, they're going to focus in on the challenges that this board has right now and the way that there've been concerns about policies, about the way information requests come in. That's, I mean, if they sit down like they should and prepare themselves before they come, they're going to spend some time looking at board minutes and they'll probably look at board videos. And so they're going to be focused on some of those potential challenges that they see coming in.
I know I've heard several people here say that they don't look at the videos, they look at the minutes. So,
Well, some institutions don't have videos. And I don't know where your information's coming from, but now that a lot of meetings are being live streamed, it'll depend on the individual site team, the site team members and stuff, how they.
I
they
do
do
like
that.
in our minutes where.
Yeah.
it was-
But
I
even
think it
the
was your
minutes,
suggestions
the
on
minutes
timing.
reflect the point in the YouTube
yeah.
videos and the
That
YouTube
was
links
cool.
are right there. So they can easily go if they want to look.
yeah, the references in the minutes are a better thing than what we've had in the past.
What other questions do you have? So Brian Embody is the Neosho Community College president, long time peer reviewer. Phil had another obligation tonight, so he wasn't able to be here, but Brian has been a peer reviewer for, years and years and years. Lots and lots of experience, has sat on some of the Higher Learning Commission Institutional Actions Council decisions that are made about institutions. He's going to be here on March 6th, next Monday, to do a mock visit. It's been a long time since our folks have been through a site visit. And so he's going to come in and do a mock visit. And so he'll act like, one of the site team people, because he's got that experience. He's got a long history of peer reviewing experience. And so what he will do is come in and with the different groups that he's talking to, he will present to them questions that he has from reading our assurance argument. He's read it a couple of different times. He'll study again before he comes. So with the different groups that he's talking to, he'll come in and he'll ask questions based on what he has gathered from the assurance argument. And then in that conversation, he'll probably come up with some additional questions, but then he'll let the people that he's talking to ask him some questions. And then he'll provide a little bit of immediate feedback to those different groups right then and there. So I told him that to meet with you folks, it needed to be later in the afternoon because of people working. So he will meet with you from 4:15 to 5. I won't be in here. There won't be anybody in here but the board. And he will, he'll talk with you about the assurance argument from his perspective, probably pretty specifically related to criterion 2 and 2C. Criterion 5, there's some pieces of criterion 5 that talk about governance and stuff a little bit, but really the focus is coming from criterion 2. So he'll visit with you folks and give you some feedback and try and
Is that
help
on
you
the 6th?
understand. March 6th. Try and help you, and Jennifer can send a calendar invite to you, so you've got that too. Try and help you understand what that site team may be like when they come in. Now, I don't know when they come in on the 17th. I don't think that you'll meet with the entire site team. They don't typically do that, but a couple of them probably will sit in. They kind of split up their time and split the team up to do different things. And so I don't think that you probably will sit with the entire site team, but you'll have
We're
one or
not,
two
and we're
people.
not the only community college going through this year either. Are we?
Oh, there's a lot of them around the nation.
I was thinking that
Yeah.
Cali is doing theirs or Hutch or.
Yeah, some of.
I read
There's a whole
someplace.
schedule.
Yeah.
And so that again will help you folks be prepared for what the site team is potentially going to be like. He'll help you understand potentially what the outcome of our visit could be, I would guess. And try and coach you on how to be as a board when you're sitting down and visiting with the site team. The site team really controls what happens. And they will start to write their report actually. Well, and what Brian says is that what they're charged to do now, lots of times before they ever even come in, is to have the template. Each of the site team members has an area of focus that they're working on. And so they're charged to sort of have a template already in mind of questions that they want to ask and things that they want to dig into. So after the site team visits with the different groups around campus on Monday and Tuesday, they will start to write that report Tuesday night while they're still here. They won't be on campus, but they'll write Tuesday, they'll write Wednesday, part of Wednesday, and then they'll leave town. So we would potentially have a draft of that initial report probably within 2 weeks after they're here. It's a pretty short period of time compared to how it used to be.
How many members on the team?
There's 5 on our team, I think.
Is there any in-person follow-up, or is it just us reviewing their report?
No, the first report that comes to us, the first draft that comes to us is a draft to correct errors of fact. And so, for instance, if they had you listed as the vice chair of the board, we would correct that. If they had, somebody's title wrong or something like that, we can't correct the content of their report. We correct the errors of fact, the first one that comes. The next document that comes will be closer to their final report. We will have an opportunity to respond to that. But we can't correct them and say, oh, you've gotten this whole thing wrong. This is the way that it really is. If that's the way the site team writes it, that's the way that it is. And then we respond to it. And eventually it'll work its way through the Higher Learning Commission process and eventually has to go to Institutional Actions Council for approval, final approval of whatever they decide we need to do. If we get a completely clean accreditation visit and there aren't any concerns, then their next site visit would be 10 years from now. We would file a midterm report at about year 4. If there are problems that they note, it can range anywhere from an embedded monitoring report to an additional focused visit to other things. We're hoping that it's not probation or anything like that, because that's pretty significant change from no accreditation issues to probation, but it's not uncommon to end up having additional embedded reports that have to be filed and focused visits that, if they feel like there's a concern, they may come back out for another visit in 2 years or something like that. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So Jennifer will send you a little calendar reminder about Brian coming.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hopefully you'll be able to attend that. He's very experienced. He's funny. He's straightforward. He's direct. He'll tell you what he thinks from reading the assurance argument and studying it. I was going to tell you something else. I can't remember now what it was. Something about that. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If you can, at least make sure you skim through the assurance argument, just read through it so you have a sense of what's there. Focus specifically, if you don't have enough time to go through it and really read it, focus specifically on criterion 2, because that's the one that really hits on governance and ethical, ethical governance and responsibility. And then 2C is the sub criterion and the core component that really focuses on the board. But 2 is really the board focus criterion 2 is. So. Okay. Other questions? No questions for Heather or any of these? You guys did a great job.
Yeah, they did do a great job.
Presenting.
It's a lot of work too.
It's a huge amount of work.
It's a
Yep.
ton of work.
It's going to be a good document. So.
So you were the next one. Energy drink.
There's snacks back there. Grab a wrap, some fruit, please. I think there's probably still plenty back there. So please take something with you if you need to. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thanks all.